The roller coaster that has been Ahmir Mitchell's college football playing career has taken yet another downward plunge. Citing a person with knowledge of the situation, NJ.com is reporting that Mitchell has been dismissed from the Rutgers football program. Other than unspecified violations of team rules, no specific reason for the dismissal was given. A 2016 Michigan signee, Mitchell announced in late August of that year, after a suspension, that he was leaving the Wolverines and reopening his recruitment. A week later, the wide receiver confirmed his transfer to Rutgers. After sitting out the 2016 season to satisfy NCAA transfer rules, he received a waiver from having to sit out 2 seasons because of the interconference transfer. Mitchell was penciled in as a starting receiver this spring before tearing an ACL. A 4-star 2016 recruit, Mitchell was rated as the number 5 player at any position in the state of New Jersey and the number 167 player overall on 247sports.com's composite board. He was an early enrollee who participated in spring practice prior to his departure from Ann Arbor. Just when you thought Mississippi State was sliding and Texas A&M was ascending, the two maroon-clad teams decided to prove that things are just as difficult as ever to sort out in the SEC West. In a game that was awfully hard to watch as the result of a pair of offenses that couldn't do much, Bulldogs quarterback Nick Fitzgerald was able to find the end zone just enough to secure a 3,514 win that makes his team bowl eligible and likely ranked in the top 25 heading into next week. The signal caller was once leading the way for MSU using both his arm and his legs, completing 12 passes for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns while rushing for a team-high 105 yards and a score on the ground. Things would have been a bit easier for Dan Mullen's side had Fitzgerald not been sacked twice. He also tossed an interception on the first drive of the game and pressured constantly, but beggars can't be choosers given how hard yards and points were to come by most of the night at Kyle Field. Running back Durris Williams also added 68 yards rushing but was mostly bottled up by a solid Aggies front seven. Speaking of the home team, things were rough from the opening few drives as A&M couldn't even crack 50 yards by halftime and needed plenty of help to get over the 200 mark for the game. Young quarterback Kellen Mond was 8 of 26 for just 56 yards and threw 2 interceptions. He was benched in the fourth quarter for former starter Nick Starkel, but he too ended up tossing an interception that went the other way for 6 before rallying to toss a 70-yard touchdown to Cameron Buckley. Given that the team was coming off a bye, the unimpressive effort will likely do nothing but fan the flames of head coach Kevin Sumlin's hot seat ahead of another tough November slate. The flip side is that Mullen's Bulldogs are suddenly winners of 3 straight and enter a stretch where it's not out of the question that they could wind up with 9 victories on the year. A visit by Alabama does loom large in 2 weeks down in Starkville, but given how closely the Aggies played the Tide earlier in the season, maybe MSU has a pretty good claim as to being the second-best team in the mighty SEC West once again. Just a few weeks ago, fans and media alike were calling for J.T. Barrett to be benched. Saturday night, the Ohio State quarterback thrust himself squarely into the Heisman Trophy discussion while simultaneously keeping his Buckeyes in the thick of college football playoff contention. Trailing by 18 points on 2 occasions to number 2 Penn State, Barrett, with a huge assist from a swarming defense, was the trigger man behind number 6 OSU's remarkable come-from-behind win that left the Buckeyes in complete control of the Big Ten East, and, to put them in such a position, the oft-times embattled signal caller put on a performance that will live in Buckeye lore. All Barrett did was complete 33 of his 39 passes. He completed his last 16 to set a single-game school record for 328 yards, 4 touchdowns and, most importantly, no interceptions. For good measure, he led the team in rushing with 95 yards on 17 carries. By any measure, it was a virtuoso performance from a player who's taken shots from many sides over the past couple of years. Afterward, and perhaps because of the sting of the criticism that's built up, the normally reserved Barrett let loose with a rousing stream of emotion that let those inside the locker room know just how much this game, and those listening, meant to him. Not to be outdone, Urban Meyer heaped unadulterated praise on the redshirt senior quarterback in his post-game press conference. Below is just a brief snippet of the adulation the head coach expressed for Barrett in his exchanges with the media, in quotes distributed by the team. "You guys can figure out all the records. I'll just tell you, man-to-man, this is one man talking about another man. I don't know if I've ever had more respect for a human being and as a person, because you earn respect and you witness people in very dire straits at times, tough situations. I've never had a kid play perfect, but damn he was close tonight, 33 of 39. I can count 4 drops off the top of my head and 2 penalties that kept him from big completions. And he'd be the first one to tell you he's a product of those around him, which he is, receivers and offensive line played. That's the #1 defense in America, we have great respect for. And I just can't, just how proud of JTQ. You said earlier in the week teams are won by leadership. JT, you see him behind the scenes. What did you see this week in him, Coach Meyer? I think I've had him for 5 years. I've seen it ever since he's been playing for us. I heard about this JT Barrett guy, and he came on as a redshirt freshman. And he wasn't tall enough, wasn't this or that. But he's tough as a lion and he has an incredible skill to lead others. Since wetting the Week 2 bed in a loss to Oklahoma, barely completed 50% of his passes, season low 183 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Barrett has been on an absolute roll. In the ensuing 6 games, he's completed 75% of his 176 pass attempts, thrown 22 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, thrown 327 yards and another 4 touchdowns on the ground, and you have someone who should very much be in the thick of the Heisman talk. I think that H-word is appropriate after today's game, Meyer said when asked if Barrett's performance today was Heisman Trophy candidate quality. Based on the last 6 games, I'd say it's more than appropriate. The last time Oklahoma and Texas Tech played ended in a 6,659 Sooners win. Tonight's edition appeared headed that direction through 1 quarter, but the defenses dominated the second quarter to create a 2,820 Oklahoma lead at the break in Norman. The first 6 drives ended in touchdowns, where only a missed extra point broke serve as Oklahoma grabbed a 2,120 lead by the 13:45 mark of the second quarter. But the defenses rose up from there as 8 of the next 9 possessions ended without a score. Caleb Kelly intercepted Texas Tech's Nick Shimonek at the Oklahoma 46 at the 846 mark of the second quarter, and Rodney Anderson raced in from 5 yards out to give OU a 2,820 edge with 704 to go before the break. Baker Mayfield closed the half hitting 11 of 19 throws for 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Sooners have cobbled together 18 carries for 170 yards and 2 more scores. Shimonek completed 13 of 21 passes for 195 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, and Trey King added 83 yards on 17 carries. Tennessee ended a month-long drought, but it's still wasn't enough to grab the lead as Kentucky holds a 2,120 advantage at the break in Lexington. Kentucky accepted the ball to open the game and promptly fumbled, leading to a 30-yard Brent Simaglia to put Tennessee on the board first. Wildcats running back Benny Snell Jr. made up for his mistake by carrying the load on Kentucky's next possession, including a 6-yarder across the goal line. Tennessee responded with a nice 69-yard possession of its own, but the drive stalled at the Kentucky 6-yard line, forcing a 24-yard boot by Simaglia, pulling the Vols within 76 late in the first quarter. Kentucky fumbled again on its next touch, but Tennessee failed to capitalize when Simaglia missed a 44-yarder. Snell punched in a 2-yard score to open the second quarter, giving Kentucky a 146 lead, but Tennessee pulled within 1 with a 7-play, 75-yard drive. Ty Chandler's 1-yard rush gave the Volunteers their first offensive touchdown in almost 4 full games. Vols and defensive TD drought at 15 quarters, 35 days, 48 possessions, 231 minutes, 38 sec. Reddit CFB at Reddit CFB October 29, 2017. However, Kentucky answered with an identical drive, 7 plays, 75 yards, punctuated by a 1-yard rush, Snell's third of the half. Snell rushed a game-high 14 times for 125 yards and all 3 of Kentucky's scores. Steven Johnson hit 4 of 7 passes for 28 yards. Now apparently unstoppable, an unleashed Tennessee offense responded with a 10-play, 71-yard drive that again concluded on a 1-yard Chandler rush with 125 to play before the break. Also, this officials just gave every player in Tennessee-Kentucky a personal foul. Anyone gets one more, they're gone. Never, ever seen that before. David Ubben at David Ubben October 28, 2017. 1 player for each team was ejected later in the half for accumulating 2 unsportsmanlike conduct fouls. Chandler closed the half rushing 10 times for 87 yards and 2 scores, and Carlin Filsaime has added 52 yards on 11 carries. Jared Garantano completed 8 of 11 passes for 86 yards. Tennessee will receive to open the second half.